Good afternoon. I am Andrea Chisholm with the Midday News. Special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. A reminder as well that you can download our One Spot Media app in the Google Play Store or the App Store. That's the number 1 followed by the words Spot and Media. After months of signing an agreement to upgrade the Petrojam oil refinery, Energy Minister Dr. Andrew Wheatley has indicated that some of those plans are yet to be carried out. Petrojam and PDVSA, a Venezuelan company which owns 49% of Petrojam's shares, signed the refinery upgrade project in February 2017. Dr. Wheatley says the objectives were to improve Petrojam's competitiveness as well as to meet local and international demands.
However, today, Mr. Speaker, neither the objectives of the JV nor those of the RUP agreement have been met. Even though, Mr. Speaker, the latter set out key milestones to be achieved within 6 months of the agreement. As such, Mr. Speaker, our government must now proceed to take the necessary steps to safeguard the viability of our assets, even, Mr. Speaker, as we recognize, value and appreciate the support provided to this country by the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela to the energy sector over the years.
The Energy Minister also told the House of Representatives on Tuesday that payments to and from Petrojam have been delayed because of increased scrutiny from correspondent banks in the United States. Those banks have expanded their due diligence to ensure they are not breaching an executive order by U.S. President Donald Trump, which imposed additional sanctions on Venezuela. The parliamentary opposition had questions.
He had indicated that there were payments due to PDVSA that were delayed but eventually released. Could he indicate the extent of those payments, meaning the quantum of payments that were being held?
We did not schedule any payments to PDVSA. In fact, based on the executive order, we are not in a position, or the U.S. banks will not facilitate any form of payments to PDVSA. We do not have any payment due from PetroCaribe until around 2018, based on the buyback which was done in 2015, I believe.
Dr. Wheatley says the Jamaican government may buy back PDVSA's 49% stake in Petrojam. He adds they are also working to solve the correspondent banking issues through diplomatic talks with the United States. An attorney at law has added her voice to those expressing concerns about the National Identification and Registration Bill. Speaking on TVJ's Smile Jamaica on Wednesday, Alexi Robinson is concerned about certain information required under the bill, especially in the absence of a Data Protection Act.
When we have a census where you get demographic information, it's anonymous. Here you would be linking it with identification information. I know that the government has said that it will still be anonymous. I don't know how in a data bank you separate that, and I think that's a question to be asked. And so in a legal environment where we don't yet have protection, and the draft data protection bill actually speaks to the 2 core principles of data limitation and data minimization, right? So you want to only be capturing the data you need for the specific purpose, because there is always the concern about hacking.
Meanwhile, Advocacy Manager for Human Rights Group Jamaicans for Justice, Rajay Malcolm, who has been pushing for the implementation of 2 acts to protect the required personal data, had some praise for a few amendments to the bill.
For us, we're very, very pleased that finally, after a few months, government has agreed to remove almost all the references to demographic information where adverse outcomes could flow. So if you give your wrong religion, you say you're a Muslim, you're a Christian or a Rasta, they can't revoke your card for that.
But you can't change.
Yeah, it can change. And so there was an obligation even under Section 19 to update any information that was in need of updating. And when applied to demographic information, it could have been intrusive. If you get a new degree, you have to apply to the authority or you'd be in breach.
The bill paves the way for all Jamaicans to have a national identification card with personal and biometric data, including signature, fingerprint, retina scan, vein pattern, and blood type. Meanwhile, the government has committed to giving the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities JCPD more resources when the National Identification System is implemented. The Senate on Monday made 168 changes to the bill, which will now go back to the lower house for approval. Opposition Senator Floyd Morris said the JCPD has a difficulty registering people in their database because a specialist has to declare that individual with a disability.
I want to find out, in light of the mandatory nature of this legislation, this particular clause, if the government is going to be taking charge of paying those fees for the medical specialist, in light of the mandatory nature.
The NIDS project is providing for the medical support to get these certifications and diagnoses so that they can be properly identified as persons with this disability so that we can plan and provide support for them.
Overcrowding in jail cells has become a major issue in the western end of the island. Head of the Area 1 Police, Assistant Commissioner Donovan Graham, says the problem is largely due to the closure of several police jail cells in St. James, Hanover, Trelawney and Westmoreland. The closure is to facilitate repairs. ACP Graham says inmates from the Freeport Police Station, for example, were relocated to other facilities as the authorities work to correct health-related issues. By helping to accommodate additional inmates, he says the Barnett Street lockup in St. James is now way over its limit.
The Freeport Police Station has been closed for renovation since January of this year. Last week, when an inspection was done by members of the services branch, those are the persons, that is the branch that is responsible for our physical assets and motor vehicles. After the inspection, they gave the contractor some other instructions as to fine-tuning of the repairs. Hopefully, we expect by the middle of November for it to be opened, and that will alleviate a lot of the problems we have holding our prisoners in St. James and Area 1 in general.
A birthday celebration turned deadly for 27-year-old Christopher Henry at a popular nightclub in Runaway Bay, St. Anne Tuesday evening. Reports are that about 9:30, Mr. Henry was celebrating his birthday with friends at the Shelter Rock nightclub in Coxheath district. A gunman reportedly entered the nightclub, robbed patrons of cash and cell phones, and fired 2 shots before leaving. Mr. Henry was shot in his head and died on the spot. The attacker escaped in a waiting motor car. This brings the murder figure in St. Anne to 56. Minister of Tourism EDMUND Bartlett says Jamaica will be hosting the first ever tourism conference with the World Bank and the United Nations to get banks more interested in the industry. Speaking on TVJ's Smile Jamaica on Wednesday, the minister said the conference will help to make lending institutions more open to supporting small and medium-sized tourism-related businesses and not just large hotels.
We're talking about an industry which is truly a powerhouse, and so the banks have to be now interested in it and the drivers of it. Yeah. And that's how this conference was able to bring together the IDB, the World Bank, the IFC and the IIC, and the Japanese Investment Corporation, among other multilaterals, and the Caribbean Development Bank to form the key part of the financial base that is going to drive the new tourism forward.
The conference will take place from November 27 to 29 in Montego Bay, St. James, under the theme Jobs and Inclusive Growth. Chairman and Managing Director of the Medallion Hall Hotel in St. Andrew, GLEN Bloomfield, says he's concerned that despite talks of Kingston becoming a tourist destination, the authorities are moving slowly in fulfilling that mandate. He pointed out that Jamaica welcomed over 3 million visitors between January and October this year, but Kingston received very little of that total. He says it's because Kingston is not being marketed as a tourist destination.
I want to make it very clear that Montego Bay is not Jamaica. And the rest of us here are in need of that kind of support given to those people in Montego Bay, those hoteliers and hotel interests in Montego Bay.
He stressed that the city has enough to attract visitors.
The world knows of Kingston, it knows of its Port Royal, it knows of the Great Harbour. The last time a ship stopped over in Kingston was somewhat a year or two ago, and it was a great attraction. It was an excitement to see tourism arrival via the ship.
Councillors in Clarendon are taking local government minister Desmond McKenzie to task for not paying over money promised earlier this year for drain cleaning activities. Councillor for the Crofts Hill Division Anthony O'Connor explains that the funds are urgently needed because of the extensive damage in Clarendon due to heavy rainfall.
I don't care where the government or the ministry wants to spend money. That is not my prerogative. I want to know that what is to be spent in our parish, our division, and what we were promised under the cameras and under the eyes of Jamaica, that it is given to us, for us to have the work done.
A business operator in Salem Runaway Bay, St. Anne, is counting his losses after fire engulfed his hardware store on Tuesday night. The fire reportedly started about 10 p.m. at Blackwood Hardware Store. Units from the St. Anne's Bay and Brownstown Fire Department responded and put out the blaze. Acting District Officer from the St. Anne's Bay Fire Department, Garth Buchanan, gave details on the damage.
The damage to the hardware items were extensive. Based on observation, this fire may have started for some time, and heat damage bottled in the building created a lot of damage to items such as electrical items, paint, and items like this, hardware items like this.
He says investigations revealed that a short circuit problem caused the fire. And it's time now for what's coming up in this evening's health report.
In the next edition of the health report, we look at diabetes.
It affects smaller blood vessels and medium-sized blood vessels primarily, and so your heart is affected because of the feeder vessels being blocked up, your kidneys, your eyes, also the arteries in your leading to your intestines and to your limbs. And with that, you end up with renal failure, heart attacks, angina. You may get stroke because of the blood vessels leading to the brain being blocked as well. Or persons may have ulcers on their legs that take long to heal, or they may end up with amputations.
That's the health report this evening in Primetime News. And now for today's healthy living tip. Maintain a healthy diet. Reduce your sugar and saturated fat intake. Be physically active, at least 30 minutes on most days. And avoid tobacco use. Smoking increases the risk of diabetes and cardiovascular diseases.
In news overseas, military leaders in poverty-stricken Zimbabwe have staged an apparent coup, placing veteran President Robert Mugabe under house arrest and deploying tanks to the streets of the capital. But in a dramatic televised statement Wednesday morning, an army spokesman denied that the military has taken over the city. More from the CNN.
We have to say it is the military, Aisha. We have to say that Constantino Chichiwanga, the head of the army, who gave two basically very forthright press conferences, the first of which was not run by the local television, the Zimbabwe Broadcasting Corporation, but they did repeat it this morning. So that gives you an indication that the military are in control. They are being very careful with their words. They don't want to call it a coup. They want to say that Mr. Mugabe is still in control and that he is safe. to use their words. But in any other word, in any other description, this is a takeover by the military.
And in sports, President of the Jamaica Olympic Association, JOA, Christopher Samuda, says he is pleased with the facilities where Jamaica's team will camp during the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo, Japan. President Samuda and other members of the JOA recently toured the facilities and also completed the signing of an MOU between both countries. And it's not only the nation's Olympic team that will benefit from the agreement. And that's the Midday News. I'm Andrea Chisholm. Do remember to join us at 7 for the Primetime News Package. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, good afternoon.